After talking about optimization the other day, I thought it would be good to start from the beginning and start from, well, what if you've only just about to set up a business and you can't optimize anything? How do you optimize for success in the beginning stages?
I think that'd be awesome because we've both been there and done it, and probably done it well and done it badly. Are we starting with someone that is already making money, or are we starting before that? I think there's a lot of people that are there going, well, I'm in a job, let's say, I've got some skills and I now want to go and break out and do my own thing. I mean, we're not talking about someone that has got nothing, they're starting from scratch. We're saying you've got some baseline, an idea, an inkling about how you're going to go and break out on your own. And now you're thinking, well, I need to start a business. Is that where we're starting? Is that the start point?
Yeah, I don't think at all we're best placed to say to anyone, here's the point where you stop doing your job and turn it into a side hustle, right? I think when you've got to look at your life and whether you've got the people around you to support you to do that and the cash and the capital to do that and everything. But how does one actually just go about starting a business, right? And setting it up for optimization success. Let me give you some preamble first, right? In my other world, I run a membership and I work mostly with very, very small businesses, or what I like to call hobby business people, where they're not reliant on the cash to pay the bills every month, but it brings in an extra income, or they're a little bit more next level and they're making enough to pay what probably they were earning in their salary, but they don't want to work for a corporation or a company anymore. They just want to work on their own terms. Many of them don't know the mechanics of setting up a business, whether to go self-employed, sole trader, whether to set up a limited company. Many of them don't know or understand about getting support with paying tax. And many don't understand how to receive money. And I guide them through those things with the help that I do with the website support and the website marketing that I offer in that membership. But there's no really good guidebook, I think, for giving people an idea of what to do to get set up for success. Because what tends to happen with this group is they get up and running, they bodge through, they figure stuff out, and then maybe a year or two down the line, they can't optimize because there's only one of them. Right? They have to decide either to do less work, put their prices up. Many of them seek out business coaches and pay a lot of cash for that, when in actual fact, they probably just need to look internally at their business and just make some decisions that they had been putting off, for the past year or whatever. But what can we suggest to people starting a new business for the first time, maybe at that beginning newbie level, or maybe those who are looking to start a business and they have got capital, they are a little bit more focused and know what they want. Maybe they are looking to employ people, because they're two different subsets. And I've had definitely more experience working with the first group, and I know you've had more experience working with the second group as well. And it'd just be interesting to get your thoughts on that, and then kind of see how those groups compare potentially.
Sure. I've got very clear thoughts on this. I think we need to start at the macro level, principles of starting a business, and then we can get into the tactical, practical, how do you execute on that? But before we get into it, I'm just going to throw a spanner in the works and say, I don't think anyone ever should start a business.
What?
No, that should not be the goal. I'm going to give a bit of background and a story as to why. So last episode when we were chatting, we were saying the ultimate optimization is to be trading the minimum amount of your time for the maximum amount of money. That's the metric, okay? And there's a right and a wrong way to do it. The wrong way is how I started, with a load of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I was 16, 17, had a job and was I want to start a business. And I was flipping stuff on eBay. I was buying and selling cars. In fact, no, that's a lie. I decided that I was going to do this. And my dad had a small business, as in wasn't a limited company. I know it's a massive stress every year that he does accounts. So you go and get all the government advice, and the government has a different idea of what should happen. Their priority is keeping track of everything you're doing so that they can tax you. Like, that's their MO. And so what I would say is there's awesome advice and help out there online in the UK. UK government set up a business. There's even checklists. There's even support available. But in my view, they are concerned with getting you to play business, which is write a business plan and identify your risks and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that isn't important, but in my opinion, the thing to do when you're starting out isn't to start a business. It isn't to hit that checklist. But there's this whole societal like construct that's really run on fear, uncertainty, and doubt about how you should do things, because this is how our educational system works. Like there is a right and a wrong way to do things, and you should follow a checklist, and someone says that you've done the right thing. And that's where we lean because it's safe over there. And I wrote down here in my notes about like the psychology of a small elephant. You know, we put the rope around it and you can tie it to a stake, and it learns that it won't move away from that stake, even when it's a massive big elephant that could easily rip it out the ground. They've just learned, well, no, there's this constraint, and it's a mental constraint here. So what I think when you're starting out, to get to it, the goal should be is to be able to give away or actually sell a thing in exchange for money. Like, that's the place to start. Don't worry about business plans.
You're going medieval here, right? Literally, here's my gold doubloons, give me the chicken, right?
Exactly. And really, I say this from experience of playing business, of like, I've had positions managing businesses, optimizing businesses, and because that's the thing that I thought was the most important. But actually, like, what my experience has taught me is the thing to learn is very, very basic sales and marketing, which everybody hates. Like, initially, it's like sales and marketing, they're there to influence you, scam you. No, that's not true at all. It's the difference between being able to explain to someone the value of the thing you are giving them and telling them the features. And this is real basic construct, but that's the thing to be able to articulate. What's the value you're going to present to someone else? And I think if you want to deal with frameworks, so let's give what I'm saying some credibility. Look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You know, you need shelter, you need warmth, you need food, and everything else. You need to be able to articulate whatever it is that you're offering in those terms for someone. So when I was 19, we had like a really heavy snowfall, and I went out shoveling drives. And initially, I went out saying, hey, I'll shovel your drive for 20 quid, I think I was offering. And people were like, well, maybe not really. And I did this all day for 2 days. And the pitch ended up refined as, hey, good morning. Like, I know you probably don't want to be late for work, and your driveway is really slippy, and you don't probably want to get cold, wet hands and feet and miss your breakfast, and you'll just want to jump straight in the warm car. I can solve that problem for you. Like, I'm still shoveling their drive, but instead you're selling the thing, the benefit, the what's in it for them. Now, I don't claim to be an expert at that process, but in my opinion, if you can't sell that idea, sell your concept, and get someone to commit, whether that's money, time, have the conversation, then you are not ready to start a business. But don't give yourself all this to do until you've solved that problem, which is, oh, I've got a thing people want, which is why I said to begin with, like, what are we dealing with? Because if we've got someone that's like good at their job and a bit proactive, chances are maybe they've got a bit of a side hustle, which is a mate, a friend, a contact saying, hey, can I pay you, as an architect to do my extension on the side, not through your company, that you work for or whatever else. So to summarize, don't start a business. If you're in a business, like, that's the worst place to be, because there's a whole load of inefficiency, and what you are paid for is your time and to turn up and follow a checklist. Figure out like what the value add is. And then once we've solved like that, which I think is where we should start, and then we talk about a business, we should then talk about, well, what's a company? Like, a business isn't the same as a company. A company's not the same as a business. What's the idea?
I think there is a culture, definitely a culture about setting up businesses that 100% is focused on like those tax mechanics that you spoke of, right? And that's potentially because there's so many small businesses in the UK. It's like small businesses is the backbone of businesses in the UK, right? They make up, as of 2021, 99% of the total business population in the UK. So being able to harness people setting up new businesses and being able to collect tax and all of those things, that's important. That stuff is super important, right? Just to be clear.
Yeah, definitely.
To your point, having something to sell, whether it is a service, i.e. you're exchanging your time and your expertise, or it's a product that people actually want, should be at the heart of what you do to make money. And that gets forgotten so much. And what I was going to mention was I was able to run this membership helping small businesses over the pandemic. In 2019, 2020, I saw so much change, right? Back in 2019, I was working with a lot of small business owners, with good products and services. They were just trying to get seen online. 2020, all of these people came into my world, right? Who were ex-corporate, been made redundant, had big life affirmations and epiphanies and decided that they didn't want to do the thing that they've been doing for 20 years. And instead, they wanted to follow their heart. And it's these people, I think, who perhaps are slightly suffering a couple of years later, because that dream to create a candle business or to create and that's not against anyone who's created a candle business, right? To be a coach, even, or to create a product that is definitely deemed a luxury or a nice to have rather than a necessity, perhaps are feeling it a couple of years later, where they can see how hard it is to compete with, players who've been in the game quite a while. And those people who were shoveling snow when it was snowing, right, are definitely reaping the benefits now. People who got into their vans and sold coffee out the back of their vans during the pandemic, and now they have a fleet of coffee vans. They're going around to all the parks and stuff. Those are the people, I think, who have done that right, potentially.
Definitely.
And it's because they have a product, they have a service that people want and will give them money for. And then they've just built upon it from there. And so people perhaps who are struggling with new businesses don't have product market fit, as we like to say.
That's the official term, isn't it?
Yeah, but basically they ain't got nothing that people don't want, right? So that just goes such a long way. And to have that self-awareness and that honesty about the product and service that you are about to go and sell and put out in the world, and asking yourself, is this something people actually want, will save you all of that hassle down the line.
You can bullshit around with all the website tools, all the task management tools, all the payment platforms, you can buy yourself a new computer, you can get your logo done, you can get your branding done, you can get a printed t-shirt. You can spend literally years majoring in the minor. But if you haven't got that fundamental thing to start with, that if you haven't solved problem number one, which is I can do this thing in a small amount of time and get a big enough wedge of cash back that makes this worthwhile. If you haven't solved that, you haven't got a business.
You just got an idea, right?
You've just got an idea, but even if you actually do the candle thing and figure out there's no margin in it and whatever else, you haven't got a profitable business. You've just got a loss. You're just spending your money. You've just got a hobby. And in the UK, to go back to the laws and whatever else, you have a lot of grace period in what you can earn. I think it's about £7,000 you can bring in without having to declare it, without having to say, I've started a business. You can do an awful lot before you have to get bogged down in all the technical detail. So go figure out if the thing's worth doing. And so let's just give a very good, a good example and a bad example. Like the person that jumps in the van and you would say they are trained as a plumber. They don't go and sell plumbing services if they're any good. You've got water pouring through your roof. You call this person out. They'll go and fix your burst pipe. That's the thing they sell. Your wall gets knocked down. Well, this person will come put it back up. You have an overgrown garden. Well, a gardener comes and solves that for you. Let's just get very clear on how that works. The person that decides to come be an MBA and start their candle business, it's not very meaty. Not to say candle businesses aren't ultra profitable and huge, massive businesses, but if you're at ground zero and you're talking about starting a business that's going to bring you in tens or hundreds of thousands of pounds. You haven't got fuck you money, like you haven't got £1 million sat in the bank, so this is like an interesting thing to do, and you're not trying to create a company building electric cars or vertical takeoff aircraft or the next iPhone. Like if you're just looking, right, I'm going to have a lifestyle business, let's call it that. Go start it. Sell your first 10 customers, sell the idea and get them to sign up before you do any of the other going to talk about.
Okay, but I should say, right, if people are going to be doing work where they might be at risk, right, if they're out in the public, if they're working with people, if they're handling data, I don't think you can just go ahead and go and do those things straight away, right? You sort of have to, again, read the room, right? So you need to make sure at the very least you've got like the right insurance in place, right? Before you go and start that work for someone.
Do you?
I don't know. My other half works in events. If he goes on site, he needs some type of public professional insurance in order to kind of like work on site like that, right? So even if you were just a newbie, you couldn't just go and do that, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like you should definitely do a number of sensible things. Like the issue is you can't mandate common sense. So there is no law for common sense. So there are a number of laws, and I'm not for 1 second advocating flouting the law. But let's take the events thing as an example, or where you are potentially going to go and, I don't know, doing an electrical installation, and there's a whole load of things. If the first step, like the minimum viable product of that is, okay, I'm gonna come and make sure that there's lighting at nighttime during this event so that everyone can walk around. Like that's the value add thing. You can still sell your service to that person and then retrospectively go get the insurance and set yourself up to do it. But there's nothing stopping you validating that idea without going and getting your van painted and stick it up and buying all the equipment and all that other stuff. I mean, you might be in a worse position to win the work because no one's ever heard of you and you're not set up to do it and whatever else. But I would advocate the scrappy mentality. And like Gary Vee does his stick, and if you've been in business for a minute...
Well, I was going to say, you're preaching to the choir here about scrappiness, right? Because I think if you don't have any type of business skills, you need to do something, right? To your point, you were going to talk about the Gary Vee flipping, were you?
Yeah, I was, yeah. He starts at the most basic of basic. He's like, get some unique knowledge or insight about any domain. Go to, in America, they have garage sales and car boots, as we'd have in the UK. Pick up stuff and then go and flip it on eBay for a profit or sell it on Facebook, buy, sell. There are entire groups that are dedicated to this arbitrage. And arbitrage just means you do the fundamental business thing. You buy it for lower than you can sell it somewhere else. That's all business is. Like it's trading something for a slight margin that somebody values, which is why you have to articulate that value, which is, on eBay, well, you'll get it posted. You didn't have to go to the car boot sale. So there's a value in that. So you get to charge more. If I'm scraping snow off driveways, well, the value is you don't have to do that. And yeah, okay, maybe you could do it in the same time and maybe your time's worth the same as mine, but you didn't have the inconvenience. You didn't have to bring the shovel. You didn't have to bring the grit. You didn't have to bring the brush. Like someone just turned up and did it. The same with washing your windows. Like there's a fundamental value there. And for me, I think that psychology is the most important thing when you start out in a business, because a lot of people have price objections when they're selling because they go, well, I don't really want to rip this person off and it only cost me X. So, maybe I should sell it for a little bit more. No, there's a value. Like you've done all the research. You figured out how to do the thing. There's a value in that. But before you even get into starting the company. Okay.
So you mentioned MVP back there. So let's pull that back out and talk about MVPs again, because I think it is a really important step to consider when deciding to start your own business, right? So step one is don't start a business. Have an idea where you think people are going to give you cash for your money or services, but then you need to validate that idea. And the kind of term MVP, I should just say, that was coined and defined in 2001 by Frank Robinson, who I have learned from you was like a professor of Eric Ries, right?
Steve Blank was professor and Eric Ries was his student. I've no idea who Frank Robinson is. Maybe he's part of the same gang.
Yeah, so they've co-opted it, or that phrase from Frank Robinson. So that's really interesting. So Steve Blank taught Eric Ries, and then Eric Ries went and wrote a book called The Lean Startup, and essentially talked about the MVP in the software world particularly, and how you can test an idea by running the bare minimum that it would take to have someone say, yes, that would help solve my problem that I have, that you are helping me with. And the philosophy behind it means you don't even have to build the whole thing and then take it to market and do testing. You could just build the minimum viable product. You could build the minimum part of that product that is going to validate the idea, and do that first before you spend loads of cash and burn loads of time on it. And so if you were creating a new software tool, for example, like Sam's Shovel Services, you don't have to get the van, you don't have to sticker it up, you don't have to do anything. What you could do is, we could talk about this. I think the MVP for Sam's Shoveling Services would be to print out 100 photocopy or out of my printer leaflets saying, I'm going to shovel snow next week. I'm doing it for 10 quid. Give me a text if you'd be interested. And then putting them through the door of 100 doors on your neighborhood. And if you've got texts, you know that there's an interest there, right?
Sure. Well, I can tell you the MVP was even more simple than that. I'd actually had surgery, so I was laid up trying not to bleed from some stitches, and it started snowing. And I saw a lorry jackknife outside the house. And I was like, yeah, I'm not lying here. There's money to be made. So we had a snow shovel. I had a bag of grit in the back of the car. And I just drove to the most affluent neighborhood near me and just knocked on the door. Hey, I'll clear your drive. That was the MVP. And I think it's really important as well, because in my mind, those leaflets are a barrier to getting started, and you learn so much from talking to the customer. And really, I want to emphasize that when I say that talking to the customer thing is the most important, because this isn't just you as a one-person band starting your business. This applies to when raising venture capital as well. Like when you pitch to someone with money who's going to fund your, moonshot idea, they're going to ask you, who are the 20 people? Who are the 10 people? Give me the names of the people you've spoken to that have said they're going to buy this off you and what they have said. And if you haven't done that, they're going to say, you haven't got an idea worth investing in yet. You haven't validated the idea. And then they'll ask things like, who's the team and can you do it? Do you have shovels? Like, do you have a bag of grit? Do you have a car to drive to the affluent neighborhood? They'll ask those questions. I guess, like for me, the MVP, at whatever stage of business, is the people and the idea and the customer. Like they're the three parts. And again, I'm sorry to rant on this. I've seen this at the multi-billion-pound level as well, where someone has a patent they've got from a university for a novel sensor, and they go to a government and they say, hey, we could probably measure some stuff with this sensor if we fit it to a platform, and you'll have this unique insight. Give us £1 billion contract and we'll go do it. And it's a PowerPoint, it's a person, it's an idea, and it's a customer. Like, that's it.
This is where the pitch deck comes in to play here, because if you can sell your idea from within a pitch deck, as many startup businesses have done, been able to get many rounds of funding that way, then that's one way of doing it. I guess if you're creating a business and you don't have customers and you can't pitch it to one, can you get your mum or someone in front of a computer and the pitch deck could go all stages, right? It's just you talking about your idea to someone, isn't it?
So a pitch deck, like, let's just put some terms around that. That's usually a set of slides that you use to present to someone an idea. But I think it can be even more simple than that. The power of digital social media is that you can put thoughts in front of a lot of people very, very quickly and get feedback. So there's a copywriting framework, which is you state the problem, you agitate around the problem, and then you give the solution with a call to action. And this is exactly what I did to validate an idea, to validate demand for an idea in a group we're both in, Trends.co, these guys. I literally said, wouldn't it be great if you had more freedom and less stress? And there are no features in there. What if you had an ultimate library of standard operating procedures so you could delegate things to your virtual assistant? That's sort of the problem. Like, you want to delegate stuff, you want more time, more freedom. Agitate it a little bit. Focus on your zone of genius. Eliminate automate or outsource the rest, give yourself freedom to do the things that you work on, where you do your best work, increase your productivity, save 10 hours a week, some more features, find out more, comment below. And that was it. Like, it was a bit of a post, but that validated that like someone might want the thing. So I don't even think you need a pitch deck is what I'm getting at. Like a couple of lines about the thing.
Yeah. Did you know that Dropbox didn't have Dropbox when they started? They just had a video.
Really?
Yeah, that's all they went with, was an explainer video, like one of those sort of illustrated ones with the da 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 kind of music in the background. And that was enough to get them up and running. And I have had quite a few successes in the small business startup space on the other end of where you might be hanging out, testing MVPs as one-page websites with email sign-up forms. Sign up here if you're interested in this. It's going to launch next week, right? Or in 2 months' time or whatever. And that's super low cost because you don't even have to buy a domain. You don't even have to buy a website. You can just go and rent lead pages or unbounce for a month, create a landing page. You can even collect the leads.
So let's say someone comes to you with an idea, a messaging app that just does voice notes. Okay? So we've said like the worst way you could do that would be to go and spend the 50 grand on a development team, develop it, and then put it in the app store. Like you're gonna burn a lot of capital, a lot of time getting there. The way we would advocate doing that is, Vicky, like this is what you do all day, every day. You're the step-by-step process you take people through.
Yeah, one page website, use ClickFunnels, Unbounce, lead pages, whatever. You can even collect leads in them, so you don't even have to connect it to an email service like MailChimp or MailerLite or ActiveCampaign. And take that one page link and share it in as many places where you think the people who might want message app with voice notes in it might live. Who are those people? Well, you're going to have to spitball a little bit, right? You're going to have to think about who wants voice notes in messages? Who actually does? Well, maybe from a accessibility point of view, right? People who find it really difficult to read or write, or people with dyslexia or something like that. Salespeople, they bloody love a voice note, salespeople, because it's another way in, because you have to listen to the voice note before you read it. You can't like gatekeep it. I mean, if you have that idea, you're going to know who you're helping. This is what, to our first point about this whole conversation is about, is you need to know who's going to give you cash for the products or services that you're creating. And if you don't know where these particular people live online, you've got to go and find them, right? You've got to go and find them or ask people. There's going to be a Facebook group for every particular interest. So you need to get in there and say to people, just as you did in the trends group, I've got this idea, who would like this? You can even judge it by how many likes you got on a post, right? Or comments like you did. Or you can ask people to go through to your landing page and hand over an email. Because if you got enough emails, you could then collect them and get back to those people later. It depends at what stage in your MVP you're at, I guess. But that is it. If you've got cash, you could put some ads behind it.
So the conversion there would be a conversation with the person so you can define who that customer is a bit more. So it's not like the first thing where it's like anyone that's got snow on their drive, like they're potentially a customer. Like we're like, well, who needs a voice note app? So that's like the first stage. But the tools and tactics you're suggesting don't change. This is what you deliver for people, isn't it? You can help them drive traffic to the idea, the pitch deck. That we said it was a pitch deck, but the one page idea, like that's what you help people do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the old meat and potatoes over in the agency, that, isn't it? So, we kind of split our work half between startups and idea testing with people who, with our clients who've got cash to invest in doing that and testing different audiences, because they might have an idea that they just don't know is going to fly, or they might not be that directly connected with their audience, or their audience might be so broad they need to use ads in order to get to them. But I think ads is part of the process. It shouldn't be the first thing you do, because if you aren't talking or in the places where your recipient of your that the help that you're going to give them to solve their problem is, you're missing out on being able to refine at the MVP stage. And if someone says that's a crap idea, I hate that, but I like it for this reason. You need to be all in on that, but you need to be looking at that and changing the title, changing the look and feel, changing the color. Maybe the dyslexics say, this is great, but actually it's not for us. And, you can then go after the salespeople or whatever, right? But you need to be able to capture feedback to form that MVP and make it a little bit stronger, and then keep taking that updated MVP out there. You can't just put it out there once and go, oh, no one wanted it. Never mind, my dreams of Bill Gates' lofty heights are over. Me and Elon Musk will never have dinner. You just need to keep getting back out there. No first MVP. I can't think of any example, by the way, where a first MVP has ever smashed it without some iteration in the beginning at all.
I think you're bang on the money. So let's dig in on this idea a little bit. So I know, this is an actual idea that I've had. And I have a dev team, so I've estimated it. It would cost about 50 grand to build this as an MVP. And I've done exactly as Vicky said, gone and spoken to people about it. Because I've kind of gone, well, I could probably put some resource on it, could probably build it as a thing. Maybe it'd be a thing, who knows? The instant thing is people love giving a voice note, but it's the ultimate dick move, like to send a voice note to a peer. Like if you're the boss, you can send voice notes to your staff and they're going to have to listen to them. But if your staff sent a voice note to you as the boss, you can be like, ugh. And so the first feedback was like, well, I want to send voice notes, but as a recipient, I want to receive text. So I was like, well, there's feature number one we've got to put in there. You can send voice notes, but then they translate into text, which, I'm like, well, okay, most messaging apps already do that. So not really that big a differentiator here, but the default isn't to give voice notes. But anyway, like about 50 grand to do that, to launch it, and then you're going to have support and a team and whatever else. Like, so if you just so happen to have software development agency in your back pocket, which like I'm lucky enough to do, okay, you could maybe spin something like this up for 50 grand. But to test it, as we've said, to validate this, before you find out that you've just burned 50 grand and no one wanted it, you could probably spend like 10% of that to validate it, and you're going to have, or not, your initial customer base that might give you some money. So you might spend 10%, but you may well recoup some of that at a profit, maybe, if you do the validation bit. But at this point, like, let's be super clear, you haven't started a business. You're just testing whether your idea is worthy of plugging into a business. I think that's really important.
I mean, it's nothing new. Ad agencies were getting housewives in to test different products back in the, 40s, 50s and 60s. It's just we've forgotten the subtle art of asking for feedback, doing market research. And market research in the advertising world got expensive, to pull focus groups together, to find the right type of person, to get their opinion and feedback, to hire out the studio with the mirrored walls where, all of the ad people would sit behind. And I've sat in a few of those in my time, looking at how they were using the product and how they were interacting with it. That stuff gets expensive. And I think it lost favour, especially from the brand side because of the cost. But online, you can get up and running really, really inexpensively. I think cheaply is the wrong word, but inexpensively. And you can find the people to ask that much easier. You don't have to go on like a massive recruitment process. So that definitely, to bookend that, should be like what you do before you go into the next stage and say, yeah, I have something. And I've already found, just because this will happen during the testing, that MVP testing process. Some people will say, yeah, I'm all in. Go on then. I'll give you money for this. I'll be up for that. And then you can start to decide the big questions then. How much to charge, right? How much time to devote to a service if it's time-based. When to do it. How long it's going to take you. Map those things out. And I think getting those things right isn't necessarily, like, you can figure it out as you go along, but the longer you don't figure it out, the more potential you've got of driving this new business into the ground, right? Because if you don't get the pricing right, you're going to be doing more work for less money, and there's no point. That's not a business. Again, that's a hobby that you're kind of getting a bit of cash for, and you're going to burn yourself out, not have enough time to spend on your life because you're going to be doing the thing all the time.
Definitely. Okay, so let's. I want to give two book recommendations, and then I think we can probably park. Like, okay, we've given you like the overview of the principles of an idea. Like the most efficient thing you can do, the most optimized approach to a business to begin with is to make better decisions. And the best decision you can make is to validate your idea before you start fannying around with the operational like ins and outs of your business. The two book recommendations I'll give, one that's really heady, which is like if you're into the theory of the psychology behind business, check out, I think it's called Influence or 7 Tools of Influence. Anyway, by Cialdini, Dr. Cialdini. I think his first name's Robert, maybe not. Great book. Another one that I really, really recommend, less known, less popular, is a book called Pitch Anything by a guy called Oren Klaff. Really good as an audio book because it's very story-based. It gives you a lot of practical examples. And for clarity, he's pitching multi-billion-pound deals, but it's the same principles. Same principles as you like going and selling your egg cartons or your candles or your drive cleaning services or anything else. That's the place to start. And it's the same things we spoke about, time, pressure, change, fear, reciprocity, like it's very interlinked. They're the two big reads. So let's assume you've now got this thing and people are going, give it to me, I'll spend money. Like, okay, we've decided we now need a business to be I'm going to say that like, this is the vessel that we're going to use to transport our idea that's got validation like to the next stage, whatever the next stage is. Like, what does this vessel look like?
Well, it depends, right? Whether it's a service, so it's conceptual, you're giving over your time for thinking, right? Or whether there's something tangible, like physical, that you're selling. So there's 2 different mechanics, there's 2 different ecosystems there, right? Because the product will need creating, it will need putting together, it will need storage, it will need posting. You'll need a platform to sell it from, whether it's the market or whether it's online via a website. And that ecosystem, the way that product businesses work is, I think, very different from service-based businesses. I know there's a fashion, Samuel, for service businesses to be productized and all of that, but you are giving time for money. That's what a service-based business is. It's time and some materials, right? And the ecosystem there for services is, okay, well, how much time for what task, essentially? And how can you do that task in as least time as possible, but sell it in order to make some money on top, right? And there's a bit more of a conceptual value placed on time. So it is based a lot on your experience, your knowledge about the thing that you're delivering as well. Getting someone on mechanical tech, for example, to go and click on 1,000 buttons is going to cost me far less than getting someone to teach me about aerospace systems, right? So you need to take that into account as well. Understanding your end of that spectrum is going to be really important, because then you can make the right decisions for where to take your business next. Whether it's for a lot of service businesses, I guess like a plumber is a service business, right? It's a great example of a service business versus selling candles that we were talking about before. You know, you probably need to think about, as that plumber, how do you get to places? How do you move around? But then if you're like me, providing a service at home from my home office, I don't need to get in a van and go around. So it's got different flavors there in terms of what you offer. And I guess from our product business point of view, the candle business is going to be really different from drop shipping containers, right? And you need to think about that part of your world. So as you start to dig down into your end of that, you'll kind of find out what things you'll need to consider in order to get your business up and running.
Okay, well, I think the safest thing we can do is hedge and be like, oh, well, it really depends. I'm just going to fucking go for it and say, I've actually got some advice, not financial advice. If you do anything and it like you die or it costs you money, that's on you. But here are my opinions. This is what I would want to tell myself. Okay. When you're starting out, chances are you've got some unique insight and some unique skills, but you haven't yet got enough experience or knowledge to go and throw a load of money at taking a product to market. And that's quite an expensive thing to do, because you're going to have a whole load of inventory and waiting time and like a lot of faff before you can get through that cycle of, okay, I've got an idea, someone said they want it, I've delivered it and got the money. We want that cycle to be as short as possible to begin with. We want those feedback loops really, really tight. And where most people start is like, well, I could probably afford maybe to have a go at this for 3 months or 6 months, or I've got a fraction of my day that I could devote to this. And where most people start out when they're like, okay, I'm going to do something for someone, is by providing a service. And then you usually provide that service in a niche or a field that you've got some expertise into. And then with that knowledge, you can then de-risk going into the product version, into e-com. So I think we want to go with a service business. Personally, I think we want to say, well, let's run this through. Let's say you're starting a business as a service, and let's pick a service business. Let's pick one. Like, let's try and be actually helpful. There's a whole load of people who are going to lose their jobs over the next 12, 18 months. A whole load of people are going to be redundant, and they're going to have a laptop, and they're going to have internet, and they're going to need to make money online. Okay? Let's try and help people with a real service that they could set up and sell within, like, let's say 7 days. How they could set the business up, how they could sell it, where they could sell it. Let's go with an idea. Like, let's take an idea that's already validated. Let's pick one of the Fiverr skills, like, what's a good a virtual assistant or a freelancer?
Yeah, like Fiverr is like the low cost service gig website.
Where you can get paid, let's reframe it, you can get paid to validate an idea. Like, that's how I would frame Fiverr.
Yeah, so if you want to get a logo done, if you want to get podcasts transcribed, gosh, what's like the big one on there at the moment? If you want to get an NFT collection created, you can do it on Fiverr. Right? There's people out there who are willing to take cash at low cost to deliver the thing for you. And the turnaround is usually quite quick, like within a day or a few days, depending on what you pay for.
Mr., Mrs., pronoun of choice listener, you have a set of skills that you've developed over your career, a special set of skills. And you know you can exchange those for money because someone's employed you for a period for that. And the trade there has been that they've been giving you a fixed amount of money for the 40, 50 hours a week that you've been working for them. Well, the dynamic has changed. You have, your idea is validated. You know somebody needs what you can offer. So the movement now is you're going to run a business and you're going to offer your time. You're going to put those skills online now in these marketplaces. Let's just reel off a few. There's Fiverr, there's Upwork, there's Elance, or is that now Upwork? You can sell your time anywhere else. And the first question is probably, well, how do I sell the thing? And then how much do I sell it for? And then we probably want to talk, there's a whole load of common things. Whatever business you're running, you've got to have that pitch nailed. This is what I do.
Yeah, but you can go on these platforms and look, right? And it won't take much time to get an idea of what the market rate is for a particular service or a particular productized service, right? So, go and look at the reviews, go and see if people have got a lot of reviews. Chances are they've done that gig quite a lot, and see what the price is that they're charging, and then go with that. The old analogy of like, where do you start a hairdressing salon?
Next to the one.
You start it near where there are other hairdressing salons, right? Because if there's one there and it's open, it means people are going to it. So by adding one next door means that you're creating more choice for people already going to a hairdresser. So that there's some validation there. If you're doing it that way, about how you either undercut the person and you provide the service for less cash, which is, the easy way out. And we're here to hopefully, over like our time together talking, Sam, is to convince people to optimize, not slash prices, right? You could undercut, you could provide a better brand, a better philosophy, market better, put more benefits and features across to people, and then figure that stuff out as you go, as you start to get in customers and deal with them and work through it.
Sure. So I think it's fair to say we've bounced all over the place and we've given a lot of opinion. We kind of freelanced it. So I want to drop a framework on this. I've delivered this as like a keynote for a number of people now, and this is how I think of business. This is how to make it, in my mind at least, super clear, super clear. There are 4 main engines, as I think of them, in business. So the reason I say engine is because you think of an engine as doing a cycle, like it does a revolution. And depending on how much fuel or air or your speed, like that engine can go at different cycles. And so your goal is to build these engines that can do cycles for you. And those cycles might be new customer, pour a bit more fuel in, we get lots of new customers. It might be, deliver their haircut, deliver the email, it might be deliver the thing. Okay, so we deliver the thing. Pour some more fuel in, bring in some more outside contractors, add in some optimization. Okay, we can deliver the thing lots and lots and lots and lots. And then the final bit is like, oh, I've got a complaint, or I've got some feedback, or I've got a review. Okay, well, how do we turn the angle on that? So in the course of doing business, and this is through something we call the customer journey. So the customer journey is just from the moment they know you exist to the moment that they've formed an opinion, had the service, had it all off you, it's done. There are three big engines as I think of them. There is customer development. And this is all your marketing, all your advertising, all your brand awareness, all of the email marketing, your logos, everything you do up to the point that someone gives you money. So it's your pitch, it's your idea, it's everything you need to do to convince a customer to come and get out their card, to get out the cash, to give it to you. And the second engine is customer delivery. Now, the customer delivery engines, I think, is where we were saying like things are very different between the type of business you have. So for instance, if you're drop shipping gym equipment that's coming from Taiwan, you've got probably like a 3 or 4 month cycle time for all that to happen. Like it needs to come in, it needs to go through ports, you need to pay tax, it needs to be welded together in the first place. Like there's a hell of a lot going on there. If it's a digital product business, like let's say you're selling an ebook or something, like the cycle time is credit card in, confirmed, bing, it's there in the email. Like it's microseconds, if not seconds. Like it's quick. So that's the customer delivery. And then the final engine is customer support. And that is quite often, if you think in terms of eBay, customer support is like a message chat. If it's Amazon, it's your customer service chat. If it's a hair salon, like you go in and you talk to the person. And they're the three major building blocks that I think are the most important things to optimize for your business. I would argue the MVP lives and resides in box one, customer development. Like just get the person to the till. Once they're there with their credit card out, you've validated the idea, and you don't need all the operational overhead, the expense and everything to do the delivery. And we probably want to talk a lot about like how you do the delivery bit. Like there's some tactical, practical stuff. There's something in Lean and Sigma that you talk about, which is called value add. So you would say in that process, the value add bit is the moment that they get the product. Like they physically get the product. All the rest of it is essential for your business to run, but doesn't add any value to the person. Side note, but worth being aware of. The fourth engine is where most people starting out spend all their time, all of their effort. And that's in something that I call business administration engine. This is ISO accreditation, ISO 9001. It's your insurance. It's your zero accounting system. It's your business bank account. It's your HR system. It's payroll.
This is going back to what we were talking about right at the start, which is, so I always get asked like, okay, what accounting software do I need? How do I register with the company's house and do all those things? And that is the thing that people do spend the most amount of time on. But if we've learned anything from chatting this past hour or so, it's that just doesn't matter when you're beginning in the beginning. You've got to go and validate your idea. I mean, the business administration one, I think that's just so interesting that you note that, because that's what I see as well. People are always faffing about building the website, not just getting it out there and seeing if it's something that people want to engage with. People are always faffing with waiting until, they've got 100 people on their list before emailing them, which drives me crazy because you'll never be able to get into a feedback loop. Waiting for the perfect everything. And I think that's the problem, is that it's just quite easy to be led by positive procrastination tasks in the beginning rather than going and doing the actual work. This is because people's adverse feelings about sales and marketing. Like they want to run a business, but they don't want to sell their thing. I think that's what it comes down to. It's much easier to do the admin because you feel like you're doing something useful although just you need insurance and all the legal things, by the way. But yeah,
So I work in industries, advising industries, and I say this because I'm slowly stepping away from these industries. The tagline is always safety first. And it's like, yes, absolutely, no one should die or be hurt. Could not agree more. But when the business started, when the Wright brothers built the first plane, that wasn't their top priority. Businesses that are up and running and working and profitable. Like, they're money printing machines. All you need to do is back up a dumper truck of money, pour it in, and for every pound you put in, you're going to get more than a pound out. And that's great. And that's why they're FTSE registered. It's why they're on the exchange. You can buy shares in them. Like, makes sense. It's why they're public companies. And a lot of people that are starting businesses have come from that environment. And the way that they have excelled in that environment typically is by getting really, really good at all of these processes and really, really good at all these checklists. And I'm not saying they're not important in that context. They absolutely are. But if you're trying to go from 0 to 1, if you're trying to get that idea off the ground, dare I say, it's like safety third. This is where Elon Musk started with SpaceX. When he started SpaceX, he didn't start off with nice polished factories and all of the correct accreditation. He grabbed a guy from NASA, persuaded him to go to Russia on an aircraft with him, got lashed up with some Russians and tried to buy a Scud missile. And he was going to repurpose that as his MVP to go to space. They said no. And then in a spreadsheet on the plane ride home, he worked out, what a platform would look like. That's where it starts. Like, that's the place to start an idea. And it's a different skill set, different mindset to the end goal.
Yeah, fair play. You think all the great pieces of software and now platforms that we're using, Facebook, Twitter, Google, these were all developed in garages, in shared dorms, in shared frat-style houses and the outskirts of San Francisco, with dozens of people living in them and sleeping on the floor and people working 23-hour days, sleeping for an hour, carrying on working. Like, there's definitely something to be said there about getting the result, confirming the MVP at all costs. And because of that, we have what we have today with those companies. I think we forget that, that they're big, slick business parks, kind of living the American dream now. But they started out as sweatshops in many ways, with people working in them who just did it at all costs.
It's not to say that that's essential for success. It's to say that in the beginning, you have like one strand, a tiny taste of an insight, and you need every advantage that you can possibly get to protect that insight until you can grow it. Like Bambi, it's got to learn to walk. It's got to learn to run away from prey. It's got to learn to fend for itself. And that's why it's like, okay, well, as the founder, I'm going to work 100 hours a week. It's going to cost something. That cost might be security. It might be that you take on more risk. It might be that you give away some of the potential upside to an investor to lower your personal risk exposure or whatever else. It's not to, and I think we're talking about a very specific type of business probably, but I would wager all businesses. I mean, there's a difference between being self-employed, which is essentially you have a service that you sell and people want consistently. That's fine, and you'll probably make a handsome living in that. And if you're happy doing that, we can talk about optimizing that. But I think where it's really exciting is, well, when are we going to do more than that? And I think we said this in our first couple of episodes, like, well, we're talking about the businesses that want to go beyond that. I definitely think we should at least tip our hats to, okay, validated an idea. You now have built this business vessel. What's a company? Because this is where we start to say, well, we have CEOs, CFOs, we have MDs, we have this like American company formation where you have LLCs, and we've got this British one where you have limited companies, and we've got companies house. Like,
how do you feel, right, about people who are on their own in their business, right? They've got an idea, maybe they're getting some cash from it, and they call themselves the CEO, right? But it's just them. Like, as a Brit, that seems ridiculous. Like, that seems utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, I think they're doing things because they feel they should, and they're actually doing themselves a disservice, because when, as the CEO, you go and have a conversation with someone, you've lost all credibility instantly, because like, well, the CEO probably doesn't normally come and have this conversation. And also, there's then an expectation. So I've run a not insignificant size company, and never, ever, ever have I said, I'm in charge. I've gone, I'm head of product, or I'm head of engineering, or whatever the role is, because you can then have a different set of conversations. And it doesn't matter whether I'm like on the back end taking all the dividends or not, like, and making all the money. That you don't want to expose that, because ultimately you're trying to do that thing that we said at the beginning, which is explain to that person what value you're giving to them. And if you're going to instill fear in them by going, I may see whatever, potentially you're going to damage that.
Yeah, I've had quite a few weird C's at that level. Chief customer success officer, chief marketing officer, chief product officer, and I worked in a fairly big indie agency in the 2010s. And I was very happy a director. I sat on the board as well, but I was always a director. And I think after I left, they adopted C roles, which I thought was quite interesting. If you're not owned in any way, shape or form or affiliated with an American company, it just seems a bit OTT. Even now, I'm managing director of my own business. I rarely pull the MD card. I call myself a director mostly because then it sounds approachable. It sounds like I'm senior enough to talk about strategy with my clients and get on a call and roll my sleeves up. But then, I'm also a director as well. But ultimately, that's what I am. I'm about to confirm the agency business for a second year with Companies House and go through all of that malarkey.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was our birthday yesterday and 1 year old, which, is tough times to get to the first year in business as a small business. So we've done it.
You've beaten the odds.
We just sort of have to get to 5 years now to really smash it. Just looking down, you sign up as a company director. That's what you are in the UK. So it just makes sense to be a director. And the work that we do in an agency is directing clients. So it just, from a service point of view, it works. I guess if you're a product business owner, you'd be owner, founder. That would work quite well, I think, and make you quite approachable. To your point, if you delivered a specific skill as well, to be the head of that, kind of makes sense as well. But I think in the beginning, these are all just names because as you start to feel your way through, you'll start to understand where the gaps are in the service, in the delivery, in the machine, in the engine that you created that you'll need to fill. And if you don't create that beginning potential framework, the framework's not there, but if you don't set those titles right, then as you start to employ people, it's going to look odd, I think, as well. Who wants to join who wants come and work with the CEO? Well, it doesn't make sense if there's just one of you.
Yeah, unless it's a chief of staff or a VA, an executive assistant position.
Well, who's the HR person? Yeah. Well, unless it's a PA, definitely is commonly, or an executive assistant would work with a CEO. I get that. But if you're hey, in my agency, come and join me, media buyer, and work direct with the CEO, it's no, it just doesn't feel right. It just sounds really...
I think you spoke about it when last week we were talking about clarity of decision being the ultimate optimization. And that's really what we're talking about here is if you're running with an idea, you have a leadership responsibility, and a leadership responsibility really is a decision-making responsibility. So if you set the culture from the offset, which is, it's a bit bullshitty, we have these C titles, and you're not really that, then you're going to attract the wrong type of people. And then they're going to feel uncomfortable as well. There's going to be a lack of clear roles and responsibilities for them. It's you're a C level and you expect what of me, but where's all the structure and safety that I would expect with a company of that size? But it's not a company of that size.
Yeah, who's my manager?
Exactly. And I think in military terms, and when I think of a company, so a company has a very definite role in legal terms, which we should talk about. But in my mind, I think of a military company. It's a company of people with a collective mission goal, with an agreed, construct on how they're going to work together. That's the difference between a business and a company in my mind. A business is an entity for delivering that idea that you've validated. A company is now, okay, well, we're attaching people to this and they're going to operate in a way. And it doesn't mean that they have to be employed necessarily. They can be subcontractors, they can be overseas. There's a million different ways. You can have these network states that are becoming an idea. You can have a network company, which is, a bit new agey, but that's how the people fall into the picture. And then I think as part of that, the governance, which is the non-value add but essential part of this, is in the UK, we have Companies House, which allows you to form a limited company. I don't think there's any turnover limits on this, but I wouldn't profess to be an expert. The benefit of that is you are you are creating this entity which is separate from yourself, and limited means you have limited liability. There are all these tax implications and accounting implications that come with that, and benefits and whatever else. But that's the point at which, for me, and probably a lawyer wants to have an opinion on this, you can have a company without being registered with Companies House, because a company is a group of people. I don't think legally it would be a company, but I'm saying organizationally you have a company of people. And ultimately what we're really talking about is the optimization, is your ability to make decisions, your ability to lead and manage this. And the ultimate optimization is being able to make these decisions very, very quickly and get through the feedback loop very, very quickly. And in my mind, actions should be fast, outcomes should come slowly. So you need to have patience on the outcomes, but you need to make decisions and very, very quickly. That's the framework that I use.
Long story short of that then is that you could give yourself any title, really. You could be the chief ninja. You could be what was that guy who used to be the futurist for Yahoo? Do you know the guy I mean?
I don't, but I do want to know, like, at what point can you call yourself a futurist? Because it doesn't serve any optimization, but it's just cool, and sometimes that's a good enough reason.
His name is Shingy, and he used to work at AOL, I think, and then he was the digital prophet. And he basically went around and talked at South by Southwest and TEDx and stuff. But he had like this sort of really crazy hair, and you couldn't miss him, really. He sort of was definitely a character. But yeah, you could call yourself a digital prophet. But ultimately, it's about setting yourself up for optimization so you can make decisions for your business easily, quickly, decisively. And starting your business shouldn't be held back by perhaps not registering with Companies House. You do have, once you start trading, I do believe you need to let yourself know that you're trading and taking money for services and whatnot over a certain threshold within, like, I think it's like 30 days or whatever. But there's so much better advice about that online. But we'll make sure we put links in the show notes and stuff. You should just get started and start taking the cash for your ideas. And if you don't know quite if your idea is going to work or not, is finding the MVP and seeing if people are ready.
If you want the proper legal advice, do go seek it out. We're not advocating that you go and wing it and scam people.
Oh, I'd be a terrible lawyer.
You and me both. www.gov.uk/set-ups-business. We will put that in the show notes. But that's where you want to go to be all above board. I think we come back to where we always come back to, which is, what are you optimizing for? And our thing is that you want to optimize for your time and your income. And to do that, when you're thinking about your idea, you need to be validating that idea. If you want to validate an idea that is going to give you the amount of money you need for the time you've got available, you want to give yourself a title that enables you to make transactions as efficiently as possible, that works for your clients, and you want a company structure that matches up with that as well. And if you're then thinking, well, what do I want, which is the superpower that we all need to figure out what we want, I highly recommend the book I've mentioned every podcast since, the 4-Hour Workweek, the OG book. In there, he uses this bullshitty expression, dreamlining, but it's essentially a really good set of questions to ask yourself about, well, how much money do I need? How much time do I want to give up? And what am I interested in? Fantastic place to start to figure out what you want. But it's ultimately about your time and money. Is where I always come to.
Can I just sort of finish and saying, like, I feel like I've trashed candle businesses a little bit in our chat today, and I that has not been my intention at all. It's just I
lost that customer you have.
Yeah, it's just I knew a lot of candle businesses or scent-based businesses or wax melt businesses that came out of the pandemic. So it's the first thing that sprung to mind. But I must say the most interesting one that I ended up having a chat with was a business who the owner was friends with Chris Moyles, and he's not Radio 1 anymore, but the DJ, and she ended up creating a candle like that he had chosen the scents of, and then sold that candle. And it's like her bestseller. It's like had hundreds of reviews. she found a thing and tested it and got it out there, and people really like it. And he talks about it occasionally on his show, and people buy loads of the candles. So there is like the potential to be really weird, clever, creative in candle businesses. It's just to be really clear about that. Like, so, if you're listening to this thinking, oh, there goes my candle business, Vicky hates it. I said, no, I don't. It's just, I've just seen a lot come and go over the past few years, but you could find your own your own niche, right?
That is the key, isn't it? It's got a low moat. Like it's very difficult to defend a candle business because low startup costs, marketing costs the same as everybody else. So your branding and whatever else has got to be absolutely on point. I have a business partner who he and I have also riffed on starting a candle business. I'm going to throw it out there because I don't think it'll ever happen. But we were going with Mandals.
Mandals.
But it's already trademarked. It's fire in a jar, candles for men. That's what we were going with.
I love that. And is it a soy candle? Is it vegan? Honestly, I saw every flavour going through during the pandemic. So, yeah, love that.
There's some good and bad ideas out there. The trick is if you want to, get started and get into it, just go for it. Like, validate your idea as best as possible. Go through the process. Like, learn by getting punched in the face.